Every once in a while, you play or run a Dungeons & Dragons adventure that blurs the line between fantasy and reality, and something magical happens. I'm not talking about fireballs or wish spells. I'm talking about those stories where the real world and the fantasy world overlap in strange, unexpected ways. Maybe a group of modern teenagers finds a set of dice that somehow pulls them into a D&D world, or maybe the characters from that fantasy world discover a portal that leads to our own, and they have to navigate cars, smartphones, and skeptical baristas. That kind of crossover, when fantasy and reality collide, scratches a very particular itch for both players and dungeon masters. There is a reason stories like Jumanji, The Chronicles of Narnia, or even Stranger Things feel so compelling. They take something familiar from our world and mix it with something impossible yet alluring. As players, that is a powerful hook. It gives us a bridge between our own experiences and the adventure itself. We can connect to it because it taps into both our experienced reality and our imagination. As dungeon masters, that setup gives us endless opportunities to surprise players. Imagine describing a castle lit by glowing neon runes, or a dragon that knows about modern weaponry because it has been watching us through a rift between worlds. You can bend tone and theme in ways that pure fantasy doesn't always allow. Before I get into the two main flavors of crossover adventures, let me slip in a quick note. If you enjoy videos that dive into the creative side of D&D, and you want more talk about storytelling, world building, and running great games, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps the channel grow, and it lets me keep making more content like this. And every time you do, an angel saves 15% or more off their car insurance. All right, let's get back to the fun stuff. There are two directions you can go with crossover adventures. The first is going from the real world into the fantasy realm. This is where characters from our world get pulled into a D&D setting. Maybe it's a group of friends who are playing a campaign when something goes sideways. They wake up inside the game as their characters. The classic way this happens is the real-world players are exploring someplace, perhaps a lava tube up in the national forest, or the steam tunnels under a college campus, when all their flashlights go out. They bump around in the dark until one of them says the elven word for light, and they discover they're now dressed as fighters, clerics, rogues, and wizards. This setup is classic because it's relatable. Every D&D player has wondered, what if I became my character? It's wish fulfillment with a dangerous edge. Suddenly the hit points and saving throws matter for real. The second direction is transporting from the fantasy realm into our present reality. What would happen if your D&D characters appeared in our world? This one can be a bit trickier, but can also be hilarious. Imagine a party of adventurers appearing in a shopping mall. You can play it for comedy or for existential dread, depending on your tone. Maybe the cleric starts questioning their gods when they realize there is a world without magic, or the rogue immediately joins a biker gang. Be sure to leave a comment and share your favorite D&D crossover ideas. What would happen if your campaign spilled into the real world? If you want other ideas for your campaign, be sure to check out my channel. I've got a whole playlist of videos with tons of adventure ideas. I'll put a link in the description below. The trick to running these kinds of adventures, or writing them, is to use the crossover as contrast, not just novelty. It's also about connecting the two sides to something familiar. If you bring modern characters into a fantasy world, let them struggle. Their phones don't work. Their pop culture knowledge is useless. They might understand teamwork, but not swordsmanship or spellcasting. If you bring fantasy characters into the real world, flip the problem around. They have magic, but no understanding of technology or social rules. They might think a police officer is a rival knight, or believe an EV is powered by demons. One of them actually is. And why is it so hard to buy a horse in downtown Seattle? The joy comes from watching them adapt, and just as often, watching them fail. Also, make sure there is a clear reason for the crossover. Maybe a magical artifact has gone wrong. A god's experiment reveals their divine sense of humor. The party finds a dimensional rift, and so forth. That way, players have a goal to pursue. It's not just weirdness for weirdness' sake. It's a problem they can actually solve. Here are a few ideas you can drop into your own campaign. A player rolls a cursed set of dice that traps them and their comrades inside the world of their characters. Someone visits a modern museum exhibit of ancient magical artifacts that turn out to be real relics, and those relics really want to get back to their home universe. On the flip side, you can have a wizard experimenting with planar travel and accidentally opens a portal to downtown Seattle, and your party is sent to seal the breach. Or maybe your group of fantasy heroes follows a quest that takes them to our world, and everyone assumes they are a LARP group that takes itself way too seriously. Each of these setups lets you explore the same question from different angles. What happens when the imaginary becomes real? I think crossover stories resonate so readily because they're metaphors for what we're already doing when we play D&D. We can relate to them because they metaphorically connect what we're actually doing with what we are doing in our imaginations. Everything's already there, we're just putting them together. Every time we sit down at the table, we cross over a little bit. We step out of our regular lives and into a world of our own making. We become someone else, somewhere else. And when the game itself acknowledges that, when the wall between fantasy and reality cracks just a little, it gives us a reminder of why we fell in love with the game in the first place. It's not just about rolling dice or fighting monsters. It's about exploring what happens when imagination and reality meet halfway. Whether you're a player dreaming of waking up in the Forgotten Realms, or a dungeon master wondering what would happen if a half-orc barbarian met a police officer, don't be afraid to mix your worlds. That line between fantasy and reality is thinner than you think, and the concept is ripe with possibilities. If you enjoyed this topic and want to see more conversations like this, be sure to click the like button and consider subscribing. As always, have fun, stay cool, and keep your dice rolling.